So the first area of business and the first responsibility of a PRO is to license the right of public performance. And in licensing the right of public performance, really what's going on here is that the PROs are approaching all of the broadcasters, they're approaching all of the networks, they're approaching all of the smaller non-broadcast areas like restaurants and coffee shops and clubs and nightclubs, and they're saying, hey, if you want to play music, if your channel, if your venue wants to be able to use music in any way, shape, or form, you have to pay this public performance license. And you have to license with us, the public performance organization, the performing rights organization. And so you would do one of two things. You would license these things individually, which we'll talk about in a second, or you would say, look, I want to use your entire catalog and be completely clear for using the entire catalog of ASCAP for the whole year. And so what you would sign is a blanket license. A blanket license is really exactly that. Like, I'm not buying individual pieces of thread to cover my body in certain small areas when I sleep at night. No, I want to cover the whole thing. So I get a blanket and I sleep under that shit. This is the same deal. I don't want individual pieces of your catalog ASCAP. I want the whole thing. So how do I get the entire catalog? I sign a blanket license, okay? A blanket license, national networks pay an annual fee to cover their entire repertoire publicly performed on that network. These fees are individually negotiated and subject to rate court if no rate is determined. So a typical negotiation would be NBC would be negotiating with ASCAP to say, hey, we play this much of your catalog on the NBC networks. ASCAP would say yes or no. They would come up with some type of a figure, usually in the several hundreds of millions, if not billions, and they would pay ASCAP for this particular license. Now, NBC would be covered for any song underneath the ASCAP repertoire that is publicly performed for that year. CBS, ABC, TNT, the CW, all of the networks, Bravo, E, all of them do the exact same thing here, and they do it with ASCAP, but they also do it with BMI, with CSAC, and with GMR. They don't want to have any issues. They sign this blanket license. It's better, more advantageous from a negotiation standpoint for the network. It also is probably a much larger check and less hassle for the PRO. Blanket licenses are typically the way to go. However, there is such a thing called a program license. So let's think if I am a production company and I'm making a 4-part mini docu-series, The Men Who Built America. I talked about this before. And I know that I'm only going to be using a specific portion of music within the ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, GMR catalog. I don't have to sign an entire blanket license with them. I can license those individual pieces for my program. So I get a license per program in order to be able to cover myself. And I can do that directly with the publisher. I don't have to go through the PRO. And the deals with publishers and PROs are non-exclusive in order to be able to facilitate something like this. I can do it directly with the publisher. I don't have to go through the PRO. It gets tracked as if there's some, normal synchronization license that happens in that regard. And it's a much easier and cheaper process for the production company network to be able to do when they know I'm not going to be using the entire catalog of 700,000 writers and publishers that ASCAP facilitates. So that's blanket versus a per program license. Now, the other aspect that I wanted to talk about is source versus direct. Like I said, the deals with publishers and their performing rights organizations are technically non-exclusive, meaning I, as an outside third party, can approach a publisher and get a performance license from them directly. I don't have to go through the PRO. The PRO does things in aggregate, just like the Harry Fox agency used to do them in aggregate for mechanical licenses. I guess they still technically do. But I can license the right of public performance directly from a publisher if I'm a production company, if I'm some individual that needs that right of public performance. It's totally within my wheelhouse, my powers to do that. A broadcaster can bypass a PRO, negotiate licenses directly with the owner of music. PRO deals are non-exclusive, which opens the door for these types of deals. There you go. It's a nice little sentence for you and something to pause on while I skip to the next slide.